Right now on the Citizen Report, we'll cover the latest on COVID-19 and what's really going on behind the scenes, and it's not just the virus. Also ahead, David Heller joins us with information on a possible severe weather outbreak this weekend across many areas of the South. The Citizen Report starts now. And welcome to the Citizen Report. I'm Shannon, and thank you for joining me. David Heller will join us in just a few moments with information on weather and also some additional information on Tegna. But first, information about COVID-19 as well as some Q posts, because there's been a number of Q posts recently, and I want to make sure we get to that. As always, this newscast is real, in-depth American, and we certainly try to be on every episode of the Citizen Report, and we're glad you can join us. We want to start first with some Q posts because this is, we've had a number of them in the last few days, and boy, have we ever had some shocking posts that just kind of reiterates that QAnon really is real, because if you're paying attention, QAnon has been kind of preparing you. If you've been paying attention to what QAnon's been saying the last couple of years, and then so many months, you'll notice that QAnon has been not just saying things, but he says future proves past. He says things that yet you haven't yet noticed in the mainstream media, but then it proves to be true. And I think right now we're seeing a lot of those future, like those past statements come true or be proven now that we're in the future. And I want to start with this post, and it's actually the very latest post, and that's post number 3934. And by the way, you can find his posts on qmap.pub. And the title that this website gives this post is Indictment Tracking Placeholders. And this is what the post says. And this is in brackets. And it says placeholder indictments tracking. And then it says non-CIV. And then there's another set of brackets with the phrase set 1. And then it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then each of these respectively are also in brackets, and it says placeholder indictments tracking CIV, placeholder acts of treason plus support articles, placeholder foreign acts pub, and placeholder FISA pub. Now, of course, this is very I think what QAnon is getting at here is that there are, it looks like a set of indictments that are not currently public, but that there are 6 indictments having to do with acts of treason, among other things like foreign acts and FISA, indictments tracking. We'll have to see how this actually plays out, but I do find it interesting because a good friend of mine just brought this to my attention, and actually QAnon has actually also shared this tweet, and this is from Twitter account Gregors at Gregors4USA. It says, breaking, even though we all expected it, John Solomon just confirmed seconds ago on Sean Hannity's radio show that multiple D.C. grand jury subpoenas have been issued on behalf of U.S. Attorney John Durham. So I think right here, this proves that again, QAnon is real. There are things happening behind the scenes. There are indictments. People have absolutely blasted patriots for suggesting there is such a thing as a sealed indictment. And yet, what do we see now? We now see that John Solomon is saying on Sean Hannity's radio show, and I don't think he's just saying it. And certainly, QAnon is sharing the link to this tweet, basically reiterating that yes, there are indictments on the way, or grand jury subpoenas, I should clarify. But to be clear, there are things happening behind the scenes, and just because you don't hear it on CNN or even Fox, there are things happening, and you just have to dig a little bit below the surface to see it. Now, I want to get over to another Q post, and And I think this is very, very, very relevant to the current situation with COVID-19. And we'll get to that in just a few moments. But the title of this, and this is Q Post 3929. This is from today as well. And this is what it says. Patriots, be cautious in your interpretations of info posted. False expectations, and then it says, and push, in brackets in bold, based on speculation will only weaponize those who attack us. And then it has MSM, in brackets in bold, and that means mainstream media. Why does MSM, brackets in bold, expend resources daily, in brackets in bold, attempting to discredit? Do you provide the playbook to the enemy with specific dates? Logical thinking. FISA indictments equals start. Public justice. And then it contains a link to Merriam-Webster.com with the words for the word start. And actually, before I continue, I think for good measure, I'll just go ahead and say what the definition of it is. Well, there's actually a lot of definitions here, but let me just read the first one here. The first definition, 1A, for the word start, when it's used as an intransitive verb, says to move suddenly and violently. Going back to the Q post here, think CEO departures, think FBI departures, think DOJ, and that's Department of Justice, departures, think state departures. And I'm not sure, but given that it's capitalized, the S in state, I'm thinking that's referring to the U.S. Department of State. I can't be sure of that, but that's my personal guess on that, on the meaning of that. or think WH departures, and I believe that means White House departures. Think DIA departures. Think Pentagon departures. Think Senate departures. Think House departures. Think AMB departures. Think IG departures, and that means Inspector General according to this website. Think Judge install. Think SC install, and that means Supreme Court. Think White House install. Think FBI install. Think CIA install. Think DOJ install. Think USATT install, and that means think U.S. Attorney install. And then it's got some dots, and then below that it says game theory. If you look, you can see Q. So again, I think in on our podcast, we've been covering how all these resignations have been taking place with, for example, like CEOs in the last many months. And I think it reiterates that again, just because you don't see like ABC News, CBS News, NBC News, just because you think that something is not on that air, on their airwaves or NPR, what have you, just because they don't say it's happening, it doesn't mean it isn't happening. And I think that, again, you have to think logically, as Q says. You have to think for yourself, also, as Q says, because the media is not going to tell you that, for example, you know, that people like Hillary could be under investigation, and very likely she has been, and in many ways that we don't even really know specifically about just yet. But I just want to say that it's very, very vital that you always interpret things in context, and that kind of segues into what I'm going to say about COVID-19, because COVID-19, it is a real virus, but the survival rates, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the survival rates are just not anywhere near the level where people should be alarmed by. I think it's hovering around 97 to 98%, and the numbers can fluctuate plus or minus. But the point is that in statistical terms, if you catch the virus, you're likely to survive it and you're going to be all right. In other words, this is kind of like the flu. And yet, what have you seen the media do? They have absolutely pulled out the stops in trying to push this and push this and push this to the nth degree. And I think that what you're seeing right now, I think you're seeing two things going on. I think you're seeing two separate agendas taking place as we speak. I think you're seeing the Trump and the Patriots. They are currently pushing their agenda. And I believe that COVID-19 is not of course, it's not the Patriots that are doing it, right? But I do believe that they are taking advantage of this deep state operation, because if you actually believe that a bat caused this virus to explode around the world, then I don't even know what to say, because it's very clear, anecdotally anyway, that something nefarious happened. What that is, we don't know. I can't say I know, but the point is that COVID-19 is definitely not what the media says. It is not the deadly plague. It is not Armageddon or Armageddon. It's just not. I mean, 97-98% survival rate. There is no way you can convince me that this is actually that big a deal in terms of where we're having to shut things down. But I think Trump and the Patriots, they're using this right now as a smokescreen, if you will, to get certain things put into place, to get certain things done. And I think one of the things they're doing, I should say, and again, this is not confirmed, but we're seeing certain information trickle down to suggest, because for one thing, I forget they have two ships, and I don't remember which one it was. They have two ships. They're called Mercy. One's called Mercy, and the other's called Comfort. And I don't know which one it was, but keep in mind that and there was a report a while back, and I don't have it right in front of me, but that they were not, listen to what I'm saying, they were not going to take on COVID-19 patients. Apparently, they're going to be bringing on other patients. And that also, and now think of this, and you'll have to bear with me, because sometimes I just turn on the mic and I don't really even know where I'm going to go exactly in specifics, but I just want to bring this up into your attention as well. That this is regarding Americans stuck overseas during this whole thing. And apparently, and I can't find the article right in front of here. Oh wait, here we go. This is from USA Today. So it's a mainstream publication, but even they're saying this. More than 50,000 Americans flown home to U.S. as the coronavirus pandemic rages around globe. And that was published on April 8th, again from USA Today. Now, I'm not going to read that article, but I think, and you're certainly welcome to go look at it yourself. But if you start to look at all this, and you think about that one of these ships, at least originally, they said they were not going to bring on COVID-19 patients. That may have changed by now. I don't know. But you think about also the multiple reports that people are not even seeing crammed hospitals. That hospitals, because what were we told many weeks ago? What was I told many weeks ago? That if we didn't shut things down, the hospitals would absolutely be collapsing from sickness, the coronavirus, the China bug. But we're not seeing that. And in fact, as QAnon has shown, that basically CBS was caught red-handed in showing footage from a hospital in Italy and representing it as an American hospital. They were caught doing it one time. Okay, we can say that. Okay, fine. It just there was just an editing error. Look, we get it. I'm in broadcasting. I've taken broadcast classes. Editing mistakes are going to happen. They just do. It's really a messy process, for editing video. I mean, I can tell you, but once you've made an error that bad that you've aired footage from Italy representing it as an American hospital, you get that fixed. That doesn't happen a second time once attention's been called to it. This is from Breitbart, and this is linked as a Q post. And Q posted this link, and I just clicked on it, and this is from Breitbart. And here's what it says. Nolte. CBS plays Italy hospital footage again for a report on U.S. coronavirus response. And this is, let me read into this just a tiny bit. Far-left CBS has been caught broadcasting misleading hospital footage for a second time during the coronavirus pandemic. About 2 weeks ago, on March 22nd, CBS News used deceptively edited footage the first time. Breitbart News reported then that far-left CBS was caught red-handed using chaotic footage from an Italian hospital in a story about New York City hospitals. And then CBS was quoted as saying at the time, quote, "It was an editing mistake. We took immediate steps to remove it from all platforms and shows." And I'll just stop right there. So, do you not begin to understand, folks, that this has been ginned up and played up on to the nth degree? I mean, it's just absolutely astonishing how much they played this up. But I think that Trump and the Patriots are using this to their advantage. And what I'm building up to saying, as I've mentioned before on previous episodes, I believe that there could. Now, this may or may not be accurate, but there have been those, I'll say, there have been those that have claimed that there have been children rescued or being rescued from, deep state places where children were being, let's just put it in rated G terms, G-rated terms. Let's just say that they were abused. And beyond that, I'm not going to say, but I've seen certain stuff or read certain stuff, but let's just keep it G-rated and say that they were allegedly abused. Now, I don't know if this is actually true, but it's best that I tell you at this point. We live in very different times right now that we can't just wait for everything to be confirmed by fake news. Because if fake news, right now at this point, if something's quote-unquote confirmed by fake news, it might just be fake anyway. But, we just, think for yourself, do your research, and come to your own conclusions as to whether you think there are children being rescued. However, I will also add that this is a while back from QAnon. And according to, and I'm having to pull this up, so you'll just have to bear with me, but I'll keep talking as I do. But QAnon back in 2017... this was about the time he was starting to post. I'm not sure which post is actually the first, but I'm going to try my best to pull it up now because I think this is relevant to this discussion. And okay, all right. This is from my Facebook friend Ryan Anthony Morgan, and he quotes. This is a quote from Wednesday, November 1, 2017. POTUS, meaning President of the United States, will be well insulated, protected on Air Force One and abroad. Specific locations classified. While these operations are conducted due to the nature of the entrenchment, it is time to take back our country and make America great again. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and women in uniform who will undertake this assignment to bring forth peace, unity, and return power to the people. It is our hope that this channel reaches enough people to make a meaningful impact. We cannot yet telegraph this message through normal methods for reasons I'm sure everyone here can understand. Follow the questions from the previous threads and remain calm. The primary targets are within DC and remain at the top on both sides. The spillover in the streets will be quickly shut down. Look for more false flags. Stay alert, be vigilant, and above all, please pray. And then it quotes the Bible. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. In that same quote, it also quotes another verse. Love is patient, love is kind. Unquote. God bless my fellow Americans. 4:10:20. Now that last part, I'm not sure if that's actually a quote, part of that original post. I'm going to very briefly look to see if that was in the original post, because that would be pretty significant. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That is in the original post from November 1, 2017. God bless my fellow Americans, 4:10:20. Now, this is one of those things where you have to think and ask yourself if you think this is plausible, and this leads into my next point. But is it possible that 4/10/20 means April 10, 2020. Is it possible? Now, it could mean something else, but it does seem at least plausible. It does have commas. It doesn't have a dash or a hyphen or anything like that, or a slash. It's instead commas. So whether it actually means a date is kind of one of those things where you have to kind of, interpret and come to your own personal opinion. But I do want to just mention this, and this is very, very interesting, because two things. One, I personally know that President Trump in recent days he's been holding his press conferences regarding coronavirus daily, pretty late in the afternoon. I think it's at least after 5 o'clock usually. And now, today, now this is Good Friday, and by the way, happy Good Friday to everybody. The White House today. Now, I don't know if... Now, this was recent... Apparently, this just recently became its cover photo. And this might have happened before today, but certainly just recently. And its cover photo on the White House official page on Twitter has a picture of Air Force One. So if you start to think, is it possible that this is a hidden message here, that maybe Trump is on his way somewhere classified for his own protection during times right now? It could be totally... It may not even be happening that he's going somewhere, but I do think it was interesting that today he broke the normal, timing, if you will. Now, although, okay, let me back up. I think that actually there have been days in the past that he held it pretty early. Like I remember sometime in mid-afternoon, he was holding the presser. He's holding his pressers every day right now, of course. Now, I don't know, but I will say this. Michael Flynn, if you're not following him on Twitter, by the way, I suggest you go do that. General Flynn posted a picture showing what appears to be kind of clouds in the sky with a hole in the clouds. And I think, as X-22 was kind of getting at, I think this is supposed to portray the eye of the storm. And he's been changing his pictures to kind of these vague pictures like sunrises and clouds and stuff. But I think it's all meant. I think that too is a message, because General Flynn isn't posting right now. He hasn't been posting in a while. His most recent post, it looks like, is December 2nd, 2017, and yet he updates his cover photos. So, it's up to you to decide, but I think it's kind of interesting. But to finish my point, and I am running out of time rather quickly here, I do just want to bring this. I do want to bring this up to your attention, and that is my personal thoughts about COVID-19. Because, and again, it's a real virus. There is a real virus, but I don't think it's anywhere on the level of what they're making it out to be. And I think that the deep state, they're simultaneously pushing their own agenda. And you see these governors and local officials here in the United States basically say you can't go outside or be in public without a reason, or you can be fined or even put in jail. And I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Just today, or just the other day, I think it was yesterday, I remember going to the grocery store and I'm seeing these people wearing masks. And yet, the strange irony is that the workers at the grocery store, they're not wearing masks that I could tell. I mean, it's completely ridiculous. But I think what you're seeing right now is I think the Patriots are allowing these state and local officials expose themselves. Because I just saw a post today, a notification, that Governor Beshear in Kentucky has basically said if you're going to attend a church, you will be forced to self-quarantine for 14 days. And the Constitution, here's the thing, these officials take an oath to uphold, they swear, most likely on a Bible, or they can affirm, I guess, but the general protocol usually is you swear on a Bible that you swear to uphold and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Certainly, they swear to defend and uphold the Constitution. It's just the way it's normally done. And I think that the Constitution, they are trying to destroy it right now because they know their time is short. And I think that, and I know, I'll be honest, I've been kind of, disturbed a little bit. But I think that we just all have to trust God that, that He's guiding Trump, He's guiding the Patriots as they get through this, because we're in the storm right now. We are in the storm. Q has talked about a storm. We are in it right now. And not just the virus, which is not nearly as bad as the media's been playing it up to be. I think this whole thing was blown up to try to get things done. You see, like, Bill Gates pushed the digital certificates. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. He's just he's a wacko, with money. But, but thankfully, I believe it was William Barr, the U.S. Attorney General. He's basically come out and denounced the idea of vaccine, basically this forced stuff, whatever the case may be. And I think that right now, I think that people, while this is being allowed to happen so people see what's going on, now is not the time to become complacent. If you are asleep and thinking that there's nothing wrong with usurping the Constitution, I'm going to say this as lovingly as I can right now, but you need to wake up. You really do, because you're not paying attention. And for those who denounce Christians for holding church services even despite a stay-at-home order, and they quote Romans 13 or whatever it is, and all the Bible is good. The Bible as a whole is good. It's God's word. It's eternal. It's good. But these Christians that denounce their fellow Christians for holding church service don't understand. Here's the thing. Yes, we're supposed to, governments exist because God allowed it to exist. But the Constitution, here's the thing, and if you take away only one thing of what I've said today, the Constitution is the law of the land. It is above every other law in this country. State laws, local laws, executive orders, they must all be by virtue of the Constitution or else. The Constitution is our law. And the First Amendment says that that we have a right to assemble, peacefully assemble. You have the right to free speech. You have the right to be secure in your person, your house, and your effects, however that's articulated. It may not be exactly those words, but the general idea at least. Your personal, your papers, shall be secure in your papers, whatever. The Fifth Amendment, you have the right to not self-incriminate. That means, in my opinion, in the case of the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to not, first of all, not have to show that you supposedly do or don't have a vaccination. And second, you should not be required to take a vaccination at all. Cruel and unusual punishment is not allowed in this country as well. And as I said, the Fourth Amendment, again, you have the right to be secure in your person. You just do. You have certain inalienable rights. Among these rights are life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So, and I'm running out of time here. But if you take away anything of what I've said, and I'll cover more about this in a future podcast, and I may even take a full podcast at some point and just talk about all this. But understand that you can respond to any person that says, if somebody comes at you and say, well, Christians can't congregate. They can't congregate because, the government says so. Well, respond with this. The Constitution is the law. It's not a law. In our country, it is the law. It is the law. It is by which the federal government even has legal existence at all. And yes, the 10th Amendment does allow, I'm going to run over my time here a little bit, but that's okay. But the 10th Amendment does reserve any rights not delegated to the federal government to Congress is reserved to the states. But here's the key phrase: or to the people. Here's what people don't understand. The government, and I'm going to say something, and this might be rather controversial, but it's the truth. The government is not sovereign. The people are sovereign. Because what does the document say? We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, for the general welfare. What is the point? What am I getting at? The first words on that document say, we the people. What does that imply? That we the people are the power. We are the authority. And those government officials serve us, not the other way around. We don't serve them. They serve us. And if those out there saying you can be arrested because you're, it's like, two people sit on a bench in Georgia somewhere, being totally to themselves, whatever the circumstances were, and yet they get fined hundreds of dollars. How is that acceptable? We the people, each one of us, and as a collective, we as a collective people are sovereign. We are the sovereign of this country. We don't have Queen Elizabeth where we just, bow, oh, your majesty. We the people are the sovereign. We really are. It's really all there is to it. We are self-governing people under God. That is who we are. We are self-governing, and that means that in this country you are given a gift of being recognized as having God-given rights from birth as your birthright. And that the Constitution doesn't give you these rights. The government doesn't give you these rights, and they also can't take them away and they can't even hinder them without due process. But the point is that you have God-given rights, that the Constitution is supreme law. So these churches out there, they are, in my opinion, well within their right to hold church service. Whoever they are, like a Baptist church in Mississippi, they held a drive-in service, and they had police. Police came out there and wrote tickets to them because they wanted to congregate. And, it's like in the Bible. It talks about how we're not supposed, that Christians are supposed to get together. And even in times as times get closer, when you see things, all the more, however that's said. And the point is that churches have every right to self-congregate. They have every right to get together. If they want to, so be it. It's not your right to tell them they can't do that. And, the Constitution, just to wrap this up, it doesn't give you rights. All it does is restrain the size and scope of the government. When this was a college podcast in 2018, I made this point too. Back then, I had no idea this was going to happen on this scale. But what you're seeing is they are trying to have a resurgence of communism right now. And I think that this will ultimately backfire. I'm already seeing a bit of a protest that was taking place just the other day. A few protesters gathering together, according to WBNS television, protesting up in Ohio about the stay-at-home order stuff, whatever it was. And I think that the more tyranny you see, the more people push back. So I just wanted to say that and make that very clear. I'm not I'm not perfect in articulating this stuff, but hopefully this was helpful to some degree at least. And I encourage you to share this podcast far and wide as you see fit. And I appreciate you joining me here on the podcast. And as I wrap up my segment, I just wanted to briefly say, because it's actually now just over midnight into Saturday, but we'll just go ahead and assume it's still Good Friday for the purposes of discussing this in terms of observing it. But I just wanted to say that Jesus went to the cross, and he went to the cross, and he didn't have to go to the cross, but he did, because he loved you that much. He wanted, he went to the cross. He could have absolutely decided not to do that, but he did anyway, and he loves you. And if you trust him as Savior, you can go to heaven, and I want you to go to heaven as well. And we observe Easter, and I think it's great to call it Happy Resurrection Day. And that's the day that we celebrate Jesus raising from the dead. Because here's the thing. The devil thought that when Jesus died, it was going to be the ultimate defeat. But actually, when Jesus when Jesus declared it is finished, that was like, yes, he was at that point fixing to die, and right after that he did die, and yet that was a statement of victory. So he secured for us salvation right then and there. And he secured for us salvation, absolute salvation. And, if you trust him as Savior, you'll go to heaven someday. And I just wanted to say that I felt like I couldn't let this Good Friday go by without me saying that here on this podcast. So on that note, thank you as always for tuning in to the Citizen Report. We're now going to join David. This was recorded a few hours ago. David and I discussing severe weather outbreak, potential actually going into this weekend, Sunday, I believe, for much of the South, and that includes here in the Carolinas, apparently, and the Deep South as well. And this is going to be, and I'm just going to say, as I tease this is going to be a major outbreak. I'm calling it right now. The forecast models are off the charts. I'm not fear-mongering like the media. Fear-mongering is when you're playing something up above and beyond what it really is. But I believe this is a real threat, and I think you need to pay close attention to the weather. So on that note, and we also talk about Tegna, by the way, as well. So on that note, I want to, again, thank you for tuning in, and now we're going to join that as we go into that segment now. And thank you for staying with us here on the Citizen Report. I'm Jonathan Shannon. I'm joined now by my good friend David Heller in Oklahoma. And David, we've got a big-time situation developing this weekend with severe weather. And later on, we're also going to talk about Tegna. But first, David, I'm going to kind of hand it over to you so you can tell the audience what's going on in the weather department.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And yes, we have a very serious weather situation setting up across parts of the Southeast coming up on Easter Sunday. In fact, earlier this morning, the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma, has issued a moderate risk, a day 3 moderate risk for parts of Southeast Arkansas, northern and central half of Louisiana, most of Mississippi, and parts of Alabama, especially the central and western half of Alabama. That is a moderate risk of severe weather. And basically, Jonathan, we're talking about obviously hail, winds, and things like that, but we're talking tornadoes here. And we're not just talking about tornadoes here. We're talking about long-tracked, violent tornadoes that can kill people. And obviously, one of the models here is basically painting, one of those scenarios that we talked about. So here's the NAM. Here we are at 06Z. we're just going to go all the way to about 15Z. 15Z be fine. Now, back in Louisiana, basically, Jonathan, you're probably seen this, but for the viewers, as of this recording, that is all these dots here. That's going to be supercells here. Those tiny specks here, that's supercells, and they're going to be rotating, and they're going to be producing tornadoes. And in fact, we can pull up the significant tornado parameter here, just real quick here to show you, to show the viewers or explain. These significant tornado parameters, Jonathan, I don't even think I've seen values this high in a long time. I mean, goodness gracious. We're talking values like a 6.4 in southeast Arkansas on a significant tornado parameter. That, Jonathan, is extremely concerning. And what's also concerning is we may be seeing this in multiple ways. So this may be the first wave, but then there's going to be another wave after that, and then potentially another wave after that as well. So we're talking multiple rounds of severe weather capable of producing large hail, winds, and tornadoes. And again, we're not just talking about tornadoes. We're talking about long-tracked, violent tornadoes here, Jonathan.
Well, clearly we have a major situation developing with the weather there, and I've heard, and I think you were the one that made me aware of this, that this is being compared to value-wise to the 2011 outbreak. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you referring to the 2011? I mean, April 2011 outbreak?
Yes, April 27, 2011. That's what a lot of people that I've been seeing on Twitter have been comparing it to, as far as the analogies and things like that. Yep.
Right. So obviously, folks, please pay attention to the weather, because this is going to be a potentially life-threatening situation. And I'll say again, as I believe I've said before, and as David has said before on the podcast, if you get if you get a tornado warning, at that point, folks, you do not need to be worrying at all about social distancing. You need to be more concerned about taking care of yourself and seeking appropriate shelter. And if you have to be close to other people in that shelter, don't worry about it, because trust me, a virus is not going to be as deadly as, for what it's worth. It's not going to be as deadly as a tornado.
Agreed. In fact, the tornadoes that we may be seeing, it could be even more deadlier, in fact, than what the virus is, because...
absolutely.
Again, we're not just talking about tornadoes here, just the garden variety tornadoes, which is dangerous enough, but we're talking about long-tracked, violent tornadoes, and we need people to be very close to a good source of information. Obviously, Sunday I will be providing the coverage of this event, and if we need to next week, if we have like significant damage and such, we may end up doing a special bulletin. We'll probably talk more about that off the air, but just a heads up for viewers that there may be a special bulletin here coming up on this event.
Right, and we'll definitely decide upon that later on as needed. And of course, and again, just to reiterate, if you get a tornado warning, put out. First of all, let me back up and say, if you get a tornado watch, just for those who may be less aware of these kind of warnings, a tornado watch means that in the next few hours, the Storm Prediction Center is forecasting a high enough chance of the likelihood of development of potentially tornadoes in that given region, and also a tornado warning. Now, a tornado warning is usually a more localized alert, and that means a tornado has either been confirmed on the ground or it's radar indicated. And there's reasonable certainty that the meteorologist can tell that it has the potential of a tornado imminently. So if you get those kind of alerts, pay attention and don't because we've seen a lot of fear mongering going on with the virus. But trust me, folks, when there's a tornado warning, you need to take that very seriously because there's nothing fear-mongering about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And what we need people to do is, first off, if you have a basement or storm shelter or something like that, go there. But if you don't have one of those, find a bathroom, find a closet, something in the middle of the house, near the center and away from windows. Don't worry about northeast or southwest corners. Forget all that. Just be near the center and you'll be fine. The most important thing of all is the lowest level. So like, for instance, if you're on a second floor of an apartment complex, you don't want to be up on the second floor of the complex. You want to be on the first level of the apartment complex. And that's what we need people to be thinking about, is where the safest place in their home or what have you is going to be. And don't worry about COVID-19. Pretend as if the CDC does not exist. Just
That's
worry about protecting your family. That's the most important thing. A virus should be one of the last things you should worry about. Protecting your family is the key here.
Exactly. You can worry about those kind of things to whatever extent you feel like you need to later. But if you got a tornado coming and you're in one of these areas that is forecast for potential tornadoes on Sunday, you definitely should prioritize that well before this COVID-19 thing, which is definitely, in my opinion, has been played up on a level far beyond its actual effect. But we just want to say again that we don't want you to become complacent. There's been a lot of fear-mongering in general, especially with COVID-19 recently, but do understand that when there's a tornado warning issued, there's no fear-mongering about that. That is absolutely information to act upon immediately if you get issued one. So just be weather aware, and we'll see if we need to do a special bulletin to recap everything next week.
Yes, sir. And obviously I'll be providing live coverage and live updates as necessary on Sunday, so stay tuned to my social media accounts, which I'll provide those at the end of the show for how you can reach out to me. But that will be where I will be providing the live coverage of this event on Easter Sunday.
Alrighty, that sounds good. Now, we do want to switch gears now to talk about Tegna. And David, I'm going to kind of once again hand it over to you to kind of give a briefing to everyone about the latest developments, because there's been a lot of, once again, another week and a lot of changes taking place with Tegna. And David, we've got a lot of information to cover, I understand.
Yes, we do. Not too much in a way has changed, but obviously we still have seen a lot of significant developments. This week, both Standard and Tegna have came out with PowerPoint presentations, and I think, Jonathan, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this, but I think Standard General has provided a very good defense on what they're trying to do, that I think Standard General has a chance in getting potentially 2, 3, or even all 4 of the board seats that they're seeking at this point. And that Tegna, on the other hand, is just, and obviously we're going to read off the FTV Live thing, but basically, I mean, they're just running the same tired case again and again and again of just, quote unquote, defending their shareholder record, which obviously their shareholder value record, Jonathan, is not that good.
No, not at all. And of course, I think that Standard, Soo Kim, I think he's definitely got the upper hand with this, as he should. And I think that Tegna, I think it proves once again that as a corporate board, they do not have any compelling argument. And I think that Standard and Soo Kim are going to win in the end. I truly believe that. Anything short of you know, unless if Tegna finally caves and sells itself to a different broadcaster, or either that or in piecemeal. Unless that happens, and it doesn't appear likely right now, even though we still have the ongoing bid from Trinity Broadcasting Network, better known as TBN, and their what is it, a hedge fund that they're working with?
Yep. Najifi Companies that is based in Phoenix. And then the other bidder is Allen Media, which is led by Entertainment Studios founder and owner of the Weather Channel, Byron Allen.
Right. Right, and I think that Sue Kim and Standard are going to win in the end, and I think Tegna in its current form, it doesn't have that too many days left, or days. I mean, it could still drag on many months. I'm not, saying that it won't happen right away. I'm not saying that something drastic will happen right away, but I definitely think we're going to see change happen, and we're going to see change happen, likely in the coming months, to whatever effect it's going to be. And David, I actually saw earlier today something of an opinion piece from FTVLive.com, and I don't always agree with him, but boy, he sure knocked it out of the park. Now, because I'm driving right now, I want you to just go ahead and read off to the audience that piece that I'm bringing up, because wow, I saw that and I immediately wow, this guy really gave it to Tegna. He really let him have it, that Tegna is not competent. So go ahead and just read off what I'm mentioning there, David.
Exactly, and thank you, Jonathan. So basically, it goes on to say like this: Tegna has basically ditched doing real news and has hired comedians as anchors and got rid of seasoned journalists and replaced them with young and cheap kids fresh out of school. And they took many legacy stations and drove them right into the ground. But yesterday, Tegna's board of directors issued a plea to shareholders to please not get rid of them. Standard General Soo-Young Kim is one of Tegna's biggest shareholders, and he wants seats on Tegna's board, as we've talked about. And it is scaring the heck out of current Tegna board members. And that essentially, Jonathan, they issued a letter to shareholders basically destroying Kim and his past practices and claiming that they are doing a great job, which Jonathan, I think that's laughable.
And before we started taping, both David and I just started bursting out laughing because it was so ridiculous and downright hideous of the arguments that Tegna was trying to make. I mean, clearly they're in pure desperation now. Tegna,
they're just in pure desperation and everything. And obviously, here's the thing: we don't know what Soo Kim's plans are. Well, according to FTV Live, but obviously, if they probably haven't read the PowerPoint, which is pretty long, I will say, on Standard's part. It's about 76 pages long, so they would probably have to go all the way down to page 62 to find what their plans are. But obviously, the writer of this article provided this full letter, which, bear with me, this is going to get even more comical here as I read this. So just bear with me.
Okay.
April 9th, 2020. So this was yesterday. Dear fellow Tegna shareholders, at Tegna's 2020 annual meeting of shareholders on April 30th, you will face a key decision that will shape the future of Tegna and the value of your investment. Your board of directors has been, quote-unquote, driving shareholder value creation since transforming Tegna into a pure-play broadcasting company in 2017. This success is a result of the board's oversight and management execution of a strategy built on operational excellence, strategy, and accretive merger and acquisition. And an openness to consider all opportunities to maximize value for all Tegna shareholders. That is laughable, number one. Despite the suggest of this strategy, so-called strategy, a hedge fund with a quote-unquote questionable investment track record and significant investments in and influence of over other broadcasting companies is seeking to destabilize your board of directors by nominating a slate of candidates that we believe lacks qualifications and experience that would be additive to take this highly qualified and experienced board and or has conflicts of interest. Which, Jonathan, that's probably laughable number 2. So that's 2 laughable points I found so far in this. And
yeah, go ahead.
And obviously it keeps on saying, it says, we believe replacing any of Tegna's directors, let alone your independent chair and other board committee chairs, especially during a time of national economic distress caused by the COVID pandemic, is not only unwanted given the strong mix of skills and experience represented by the current directors, but would also disrupt Tegna's ability to continue delivering strong operational and financial results. That's laughable number 3 right there. And then last but not least, this claim, which Jonathan, you and I agreed off air that this is just ludicrous. Tegna's highly qualified, engaged, and diverse board and management have an outstanding track record of shareholder value creation. Ha 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 ha!
Yeah, that's this. That I mean, Tegna is just so ridiculous. They really have become a clown show, with all due respect. And David, FTV, going back to FTV, he was right. They have quite literally hired people that are not journalists to do news shows. Like you and I can both think of that, for one, WKYC, how they have completely train wrecked the branding and everything about that station. And now we're seeing, I mean, think about this. And David, you were telling me this, I believe, yesterday. Why don't you go ahead and bring up, just briefly, we'll try to keep this short, but you were bringing up examples of how Tegna, and keep in mind, folks, Tegna, in its current form has only existed since about 2015. And yet, the stations that they've had, they have cratered the ratings in many cases.
Oh yes, absolutely. And you're spot on there as well. So basically what has happened over the last several years, as I'm scrolling all the way up as we're talking here, basically Tegna has destroyed legacy stations like WFAA and WWL that were for years predominant #1 stations. And now here's an example of that. For WFAA, they went from #1 from 2012 to 14 to falling to #2 in 15, #3 in 16 and 17, all the way down to last place in the Dallas-Fort Worth market in 2018. So that's one example there. Another example is KHOU. Went from #1 from 2012 to 16 to falling to #2 in 17 and #3 in 2018. And then last but not least, Kent's. They went from #2, being the #2 station in San Antonio, to being in last place behind, obviously, Graham, and even now behind some of the Spanish language stations in the market and behind Sinclair.
So, okay, hold up a second. You said that last station you were mentioning has actually gone behind the ratings of a Spanish language TV station. Just to be clear, that's what you said?
Yes, that and a Sinclair station.
Oh my goodness, that's even worse than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all down to #4 in the ratings.
Yeah, I mean, folks, that should tell you enough right there, all you need to know about Tegna. But there's so much more to say about Tegna. And David, I think we can just end on this note. I think that in the coming weeks and months, we're going to see action take place to fix this on Soo Kim and Standard's part, because he's not going anywhere. That's becoming pretty clear.
Exactly. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, he's probably not going to go anywhere within this industry, period. And in fact, I was just reading some of the plans off air. And one of the things that is on his agenda is to, reopen the talks that Tegna had in the past with companies like Gray and Apollo about selling, potentially doing a sale with one of those companies, or something that correlates to a sale. Basically,
Right.
is what I'm trying to get at to viewers.
Right. And we'll of course keep everyone up to date. We may not cover this every week, but we'll bring up Tegna as we feel like we need to. And David, as we kind of close things out here on the Citizen Report, why don't you go ahead and tell viewers, like you were saying earlier, they can go onto your Twitter and keep up with tornado developments. Go ahead and tell viewers your Twitter handle.
David_Heller9, and that is where, coming up on Sunday, we will obviously be having team coverage on this very potent severe weather situation. In fact, I have not seen the models coming into agreement the way that they have here, probably since that infamous 2011 super outbreak, where, if I remember correctly, Jonathan, those models came into agreement, I think, a couple days before the event took place. And basically, we're seeing something similar to that now this year with this event. So that should tell you guys at home how serious of a situation this is. And so obviously, we're going to have team coverage on all social media platforms throughout the day on Sunday. And again, we cannot express enough how serious of a situation this is, and why people in the Deep South and Southeast need to take this threat seriously.
And let's just hope that that the Weather Channel decides to not do reruns that day and actually does weather coverage.
Yes. And also at the same time, let's hope that we don't end up having to do a special bulletin next week. I hope we don't.
Exactly.
But if we have to do one next week, we will most certainly do it.
Alrighty, David. Appreciate your work. Good work as always. Just to tell viewers where they can find me on Twitter, I'm at the Jonathan News. And I'm also on Facebook, and you can find me, of course, on YouTube at using my full name, Jonathan Ryan Shannon. And be sure, and I'm also on Instagram, by the way, as well. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Citizen Report. We just want to remind you of our website, thecitizenreport.weebly.com, and also New Shannon Media's website, nsm4christ.org. And I'd like to thank you, David, for coming on here and to view. Okay.
No, go ahead.
That's the kind of thing with those remote broadcasting. It's kind of the audio sometimes is works out a little bit kind of the technicalities of it's kind of interesting sometimes, because I'll be speaking, and when the other starts speaking, the audio might not come in completely. So that's what you're actually hearing at home. But to all of our viewers at home, thank you as always for tuning into the Citizen Report. We appreciate your viewership as always, and we look forward to seeing you again. Hopefully it'll be next weekend and not having to do a special bulletin on the severe weather, but of course we will if we feel like we need to. And we'll keep you advised on Twitter, especially with David, regarding the weather. And we will see you again on the next edition of the Citizen Report. Have a great weekend, everybody. And trust God and enjoy life. And remember, because He is risen, it's because we can live today. And thank you for tuning in. We will see you again next time.
Good night, everyone.
The Citizen Report is a production of New Shannon Media. All content protected under copyright.